The Galactic Council ships appeared in Earth's orbit on a quiet Tuesday morning. 6 massive vessels hung above the planet like metal mountains in the sky. People around the world stopped and stared upward. Some ran in fear, some prayed. Most just watched and waited. In Washington, D.C., Ambassador Peter Collins straightened his tie and took a deep breath. At 55, with gray hair and steady hands, he had spent his life working toward peaceful relations between nations. Now he would try to make peace with beings from another world. The United Nations had chosen him to speak for all humanity. It was the greatest honor and the heaviest burden he had ever carried. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Council. They had found Earth by following radio signals sent into space decades ago. Their message was simple: they came in peace, and wanted to welcome humans to the wider community of spacefaring races. "This is our chance to join something amazing," Collins told the emergency meeting of world leaders. "They offer us technology, knowledge, and protection. They want to help us." Commander Samantha Wright sat at the back of the room, her military uniform crisp and her expression doubtful. At 42, she had seen enough wars to know that powerful groups rarely offered gifts without expecting something in return. As head of the North American Space Defense Force, she had been called to provide security insights. "What exactly do they want from us?" she asked when Collins finished speaking. "Advanced aliens don't travel light years just to be friendly," the world leaders murmured in agreement. President George Fuller of the United States nodded at Wright. "The commander asks a fair question. What do these aliens want?" Collins smiled confidently. "They say they want cultural exchange. They want to add human art, music, and ideas to their collection. They find us interesting." Wright wasn't convinced. But the meeting moved forward. Earth would welcome the aliens with open arms. Ambassador Collins would lead the newly formed Human Diplomatic Corps to handle all communication. The first official meeting took place in a special building constructed in Geneva. The alien representative was called Zixtel, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. It spoke perfect English through a small device on its chest. "We welcome humans to the great galactic community," Zixtel said. "We have watched your development with interest. Now you're ready to join us as a protectorate species." Collins nodded eagerly, but one word caught Wright's attention. "Protectorate? What exactly does that mean?" she asked. Zixtel's large eyes blinked slowly. "All new species enter the Council as protectorates for their own safety. You will have limited rights for the first century while you learn our ways." This wasn't the equal partnership Collins had described. Over the next few days, more details emerged. Earth would need to stop developing certain technologies, especially military ones. Humans would need permission to travel beyond their solar system. Council ships would maintain bases on Earth and several other planets in the solar system. "They're not offering partnership," Wright told President Fuller in a private meeting. "They're negotiating our surrender before we can become a threat." Fuller looked troubled. "Collins says we need allies in space. He says we can't survive alone." "Out there, maybe not," Wright agreed. "But these aren't allies? They're masters looking for servants?" While the diplomats continued talking with the aliens, Wright began quiet preparations. She gathered a team of military leaders and scientists who shared her concerns. They met in a secure underground facility in Colorado. "I've reviewed the treaty," said Lieutenant Alan Grant, a young intelligence officer with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "There's a section about containment protocols for planets that refuse protectorate status." Dr. Olivia Davis, a physicist with wild curly hair and brilliant ideas, spoke up. "I've been studying the technology samples they gave us. It's impressive but outdated. I think they're giving us their old junk while keeping the good stuff for themselves." Wright nodded. "We need to know more. Grant, I want you to find a way into their systems. Davis, keep studying their tech. Find weaknesses." Over the next month, the picture became clearer and darker. Grant managed to access the aliens' database using techniques they hadn't protected against. "I found records of 3 other species who refused protectorate status," he reported. All three were isolated and eventually forced to submit after their planets were blockaded. One species tried to fight back and had their major cities destroyed as punishment. Meanwhile, Davis made progress understanding alien technology. Their ships use a form of energy shield we could potentially disrupt, and their faster-than-light communication system has security flaws. The diplomatic talks weren't going well either. Zixtel had grown frustrated with human questions and delays. During one heated meeting, the alien let slip a revealing comment. "Your choice is simple," it told Collins. "Accept protection or face containment? Primitive species like yours always resist at first, but you will accept your place eventually." Collins reported this to Earth's leaders, finally seeing the truth. "They don't see us as equals," he admitted. "I was wrong. They see us as resources to be managed." President Fuller called an emergency meeting of the newly formed Earth Defense Council, with representatives from all major nations. Commander Wright presented her findings and recommendations. "We have three options," she explained. "First, we can accept their terms and become a servant species. Second, we can refuse openly and face their containment, which means blockade and possible attack. Third, we can pretend to negotiate while secretly preparing for war." The room was silent as everyone considered the options. No one had imagined first contact would lead to this impossible choice. "If we fight, can we win?" asked President Fuller. Wright stood straight. "Not in a direct conflict, not yet. But Dr. Davis believes we can adapt their technology quickly. Lieutenant Grant has found weaknesses in their systems. They don't expect resistance, which gives us the element of surprise. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would pretend to continue negotiations while secretly preparing for conflict. Each nation would contribute resources and personnel to a unified Earth Defense Force under Wright's command. As the aliens waited for humans to accept their terms, Wright's team worked day and night. Military bases around the world converted to production facilities for new weapons based on alien technology. Space launch sites operated in secret, sending small, stealthy satellites to monitor the alien ships. 6 months after first contact, Zixtel requested a final answer. Collins met with the alien delegation one last time. "Humanity needs more time to consider your generous offer," he said, following the script Wright had prepared. "Our governments move slowly. We ask for 1 year to prepare our people for this." "Great change." Zixtel seemed annoyed but agreed. "1 standard galactic year. We will return then for your formal acceptance of protectorate status." As the alien ships departed Earth orbit, they left behind small monitoring stations to observe the planet. They didn't know that humans had already learned how to block and feed false data to these devices. In the secure facility in Colorado, Commander Wright watched the alien ships leave on a large screen. President Fuller stood beside her. "Did we just commit humanity to war with an advanced alien civilization?" Fuller asked quietly. Wright nodded. "Yes, sir. But we committed to a war for freedom rather than peace through submission." Fuller sighed heavily. "God help us all." Wright looked at the stars visible on another screen. "God helps those who help themselves, Mr. President. And that's exactly what we're going to do." 6 months passed quickly as Earth prepared in secret for war against the Galactic Council. The alien monitoring stations continued to send back peaceful reports. Thanks to Lieutenant Grant's team of hackers who fed them false data, every nation on Earth had united under the threat of alien domination. Old enemies now worked together on humanity's most important project ever. Commander Samantha Wright stood in the massive underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains and watched workers assemble the first true human warship. The vessel didn't look impressive yet. It was all exposed metal and hanging wires, but soon it would be humanity's best hope. "How soon can it fly?" she asked Captain Frank Miller. The man chosen to command the ship. Miller was 40 years old with a weathered face and steady hands. He had been a Navy captain before joining the new Earth Defense Force. 3 weeks if we push the crews around the clock, he answered. "Will that be soon enough?" Wright nodded. "It has to be. The aliens' monitoring stations are scheduled for a major data transmission in 30 days. If they realize we're building warships instead of preparing to welcome them as our new overlords, they'll bring their fleet back immediately. Dr. Olivia Davis joined them, carrying a tablet filled with technical diagrams. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her voice was excited. We've made a breakthrough with the alien communication technology. I can show you in the lab. They followed her to a room filled with strange equipment. Some parts were clearly alien technology with smooth, glowing surfaces. Others were human-made, boxy, and practical. In the center sat a device that pulsed with blue light. This is a modified version of their faster-than-light communication system, Davis explained. We've not only figured out how it works, we've improved it. We can now intercept their signals without them knowing. Wright's eyes widened. You mean we can spy on their communications? Better than that, Davis smiled. We can feed false information into their network. And we've discovered something else. Their FTL communication system uses the same basic principles as their ship engines. If we can build this, we can build our own FTL drive soon. Wright placed a hand on Davis's shoulder. This changes everything. Good work, Doctor. Back in her office, Wright met with President Fuller and the Earth Defense Council via secure video link. Representatives from every major nation watched as she outlined the new plan. We now have 3 advantages, Wright explained. First, surprise, they think we're peaceful and compliant. Second, intelligence. We can intercept their communications. Third, technology. Dr. Davis and her team have adapted their tech faster than anyone thought possible. But their ships are still far more powerful than anything we can build, said the Russian representative. How do we fight them directly? Wright smiled. We don't. Not at first. Captain Miller will lead our first mission in 3 weeks. His ship, the USS Defiant, will target the alien monitoring stations around our solar system. These stations are lightly defended because the Council never expected us to attack them. President Fuller looked concerned. And after we destroy their monitoring stations, what then? Then we build our real fleet, Wright answered. Dr. Davis believes we can have 20 warships ready within a year. Each one will incorporate more advanced technology as we continue to learn. The Council thinks in terms of centuries. They won't expect us to move so quickly. The plan was approved and work accelerated. The USS Defiant was completed ahead of schedule. It didn't look like the sleek spaceships from science fiction movies. It was bulky and bristled with weapons. Inside, the bridge was a mix of traditional naval equipment and adapted alien technology. Captain Miller assembled his crew from the best pilots and officers from around the world. Lieutenant Kate Johnson joined as communications officer. At 32, she had been a computer security expert before the aliens arrived. Now she would lead the electronic warfare aspect of the mission. Her team had developed special programs to confuse alien sensors and communications. Their systems are actually quite vulnerable, she told Miller during mission briefing. They've never needed strong security because no one has challenged them in thousands of years. The day before launch, Commander Wright addressed Miller's crew. 50 men and women stood at attention in the Defiant's main cargo bay. They came from 20 different countries but wore the same new uniform with Earth's flag on the shoulder. Tomorrow you will fight the first battle for humanity's freedom, Wright told them. The Council believes we should be their servants. They believe we will accept a lower place in their galactic order. You will show them how wrong they are. The Defiant launched at dawn from a hidden facility in the Antarctic. The ship climbed quickly through Earth's atmosphere, powered by engines. Based on alien technology but modified by human engineers. Once in space, it moved toward the first target, a monitoring station orbiting Mars. The station was a small structure with delicate sensors and a single alien operator. It never detected the Defiant until the human ship was almost on top of it. Captain Miller gave the order and the Defiant fired its main weapon, an electromagnetic pulse device designed by Dr. Davis. The pulse hit the station, shutting down all its systems instantly. Send the boarding team, Miller ordered. 6 crew members in spacesuits launched toward the disabled station. They entered through an emergency airlock and found the alien operator unconscious due to life support failure. They downloaded all data from the station's computers, placed explosive charges, then returned to the Defiant. "Target neutralized," reported the team leader as the station exploded behind them over the next 4 hours. The Defiant repeated this process at each of the 5 monitoring stations in the solar system. At the final station, they met resistance. A small alien security ship arrived just as they were finishing. It was the first direct combat between humans and the Galactic Council. "Evasive maneuvers," Miller ordered as the alien ship fired energy. Weapons that the Defiant barely avoided, Lieutenant Johnson activated her electronic warfare systems, sending false sensor readings to the alien vessel. The alien ship hesitated, confused by contradictory data. That moment was all Miller needed. "Fire main batteries," he commanded. The defense guns roared, sending projectiles enhanced with alien technology toward the enemy ship, the alien vessels. Shields flared but couldn't stop the attack. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion. "We've eliminated all monitoring stations and neutralized one enemy vessel," Miller reported to Earth. "No casualties on our side?" In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Wright received the news with grim satisfaction. Beside her, President Fuller looked both relieved and troubled. "We've just started a war with an enemy that could destroy our entire planet," Fuller said quietly. "They already decided our fate when they planned to make us a protectorate, right?" Replied, "We're just refusing to accept it." Lieutenant Grant rushed in with new information. "Commander, we've intercepted Council communications. They don't know the monitoring stations have been destroyed. Our false data feed is working. They still think Earth is preparing to welcome them back as our new rulers," Wright nodded. "Good. How long until they realize something is wrong?" "Based on their communication protocols, at least 3 months. Possibly 6. "Then we have 6 months to build our fleet," Wright said. "Every shipyard on Earth needs to work at maximum capacity. And Lieutenant Johnson's successful electronic warfare gives me an idea for our next step." President Fuller raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "Infiltration," Wright answered. "We'll build ships that can pass as Council vessels. We'll use their own protocols against them. While they're looking for a primitive human fleet, we'll hit them from inside their own security perimeter." As the Defiant returned to Earth, the crew celebrated the first victory in humanity's war for independence. But Captain Miller remained at his post, staring at the stars that now seemed full of threat and promise. "This is just the beginning," he told his executive officer. "The real war hasn't even started yet." 2 years passed as Earth transformed itself into a war machine hidden from alien eyes. The success of the first mission had given humanity precious time. Commander Samantha Wright had been promoted to admiral and now oversaw the entire Earth Defense Fleet. Construction of warships happened in secret facilities on Mars and in the asteroid belt where the Council monitoring systems had been replaced with human-controlled versions that broadcast false information. General Henry Baker stood in the massive shipyard carved into the side of Olympus Mons on Mars at 62. He was the oldest member of the Earth Defense Command, with white hair and a back that still stood perfectly straight after 40 years in the military. He watched as workers swarmed over the nearly completed hull of the EDF Invincible, a destroyer 3 times larger than the USS Defiant had been. "Will she be ready for the operation?" asked Admiral Wright, who had arrived from Earth for inspection. Baker nodded. "All 20 ships will be ready. They aren't pretty, but they're powerful." The human ships indeed looked crude compared to the elegant Council vessels. They had blocky designs with extra armor plating and more weapons than Council military doctrine considered necessary. Council ships were built for efficiency and grace. Human ships were built to survive and kill. "And the special weapons?" Wright asked quietly. "Dr. Davis will brief you herself," Baker replied. "She's waiting in the research facility." They took a transport through the underground tunnels that connected the shipyard to the research base. Mars had become humanity's military headquarters. Nearly 100,000 people now lived and worked in the growing network of bases beneath. The red planet's surface. Dr. Olivia Davis had changed in the 2 years since first contact. The wild energy was still there, but now it was focused and disciplined. Her laboratory was filled with equipment salvaged from Council technology and modified by human hands. "Admiral, I'd like to show you the sunburst torpedo," Davis said without greeting. She led right to a sealed chamber where a missile-like device sat on a testing platform. It looked simple, but Wright knew appearances were deceiving when it came to Davis's work. "This doesn't look like much," Wright commented. Davis smiled. "That's the point. Council sensors will register it as a standard propulsion unit until it's too late. The sunburst creates a disruption field that targets the exact frequency of Council shield harmonics. Their shields will fail completely for approximately 3 seconds. 3 seconds is all our gunners need," Wright said with approval. "How many do we have?" 50 per ship, more in production." Wright nodded. "Excellent work, Doctor. Now what about Project Phantom?" Davis's smile faded. "That's more complicated. We can make our ships appear to be Council vessels on their sensors, but only at a distance. Any close visual inspection would reveal the truth. We don't need perfection," Wright assured her. "We just need enough confusion to get our ships into position for the first strike." Back on Earth, President Fuller had been replaced by President Daniel Harrison after elections. Harrison was younger and more aggressive in his approach to the alien threat. He met with Admiral Wright in the Underground Command Center in Colorado. "The Council ships will return to Earth in 3 months, expecting to find a compliant population ready to accept protectorate status," Harrison said. "Instead, they'll find our fleet waiting for them." "But what if they bring more ships than we expect? What if our weapons don't work as planned?" Wright understood his concerns. "We have contingency plans, Mr. President. Lieutenant Grant's intelligence team has infiltrated deep into the Council's information network. We know exactly what ships they're sending and when they'll arrive. And we won't be fighting in Earth orbit. We'll intercept them at the edge of the solar system." "And if we lose?" Harrison pressed. "Then humanity will go down fighting rather than live as slaves," Wright answered simply. Harrison nodded slowly. "The people don't know how much danger we're in. They think the aliens left and might never return." "Better that way," Wright said. "They can't know what's coming until it's over, one way or another." In orbit around Jupiter, Lieutenant Kate Johnson, now a commander, oversaw the final tests of the electronic warfare systems that would be crucial to the coming battle. Her ship, the EDF Deception, was specially equipped to interfere with Council communications and sensors. "The Council relies too heavily on their technology," she explained to her crew during briefing. "They trust their systems completely because no one has ever fooled them before. That makes them vulnerable to us." Johnson had developed new programs that could insert false data into Council tactical networks in real time. During battle, Council ships would see phantom human vessels that didn't exist while real human ships appeared to be somewhere else. "Confusion is our ally," she told her officers. "For the first few minutes of battle, they won't know what's happening. Those minutes will determine who lives and who dies." As the deadline approached, Earth's 20 warships gathered at their staging area in the shadow of Neptune. Captain Frank Miller, now commanding the flagship EDF Avenger, addressed the assembled fleet commanders via secure communication. "In 48 hours, we will engage in humanity's first major battle against the Galactic Council," he said. "Our mission is to destroy their fleet before they can report our resistance to the wider Council. If even one of their ships escapes to use a long-range communicator, reinforcements will arrive within weeks." The battle plan was simple but daring. Johnson's electronic warfare ships would create confusion in the Council formation. Miller's heavy destroyers would then strike at the command vessels with sunburst torpedoes. The smaller, faster human ships would clean up any survivors. "They expect sheep ready for shearing," Miller concluded. "They'll find wolves instead." The Council delegation arrived exactly when expected. 7 large ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They paused to run standard scans of the area, their sensors showing nothing unusual thanks to the human countermeasures. Admiral Wright, watched from the command center on Mars as the operation began. On the large display screen, the Council ships appeared as red triangles moving slowly toward Earth. The human fleet, represented by blue squares, moved silently into attack position. All ships maintain communication blackout, Wright ordered. Engage only on Captain Miller's signal. The Council ships continued forward, unaware of the trap. When they reached the designated point, Miller sent the single-word command that began, "The war in earnest. Execute." Commander Johnson's electronic warfare activated first. The Council ship's sensors suddenly showed dozens of human vessels appearing all around them. At the same time, the real human fleet vanished from their detection. Systems. Council ships are broadcasting confusion and requesting authentication, reported the communications officer on the Avenger. Their formation is breaking up as they respond to our phantom signals. Launch sunburst torpedoes, Miller ordered. All ships, weapons free? The human destroyers fired their special weapons. The torpedoes streaked across space, appearing as harmless debris on Council sensors until the moment they detonated. Brilliant flashes of energy surrounded 3 Council ships as their shields collapsed. Direct hits on targets Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, reported the tactical officer. Their shields are down. All batteries fire, Miller commanded. The human ships unleashed everything they had. Rail guns fired magnetically accelerated projectiles. Missile launchers emptied their racks. Laser arrays burned through suddenly unprotected alien hulls. 2 Council ships exploded immediately. A third drifted, crippled, and powerless. The remaining 4 recovered quickly from their surprise and began to fight back. Energy weapons lashed out, catching 1 human destroyer unprepared. The ship broke apart, the first human vessel lost in the war. Evasive pattern Delta, Miller ordered as his ship shuddered under enemy fire. Launch second wave of sunbursts. The battle became a chaotic dance of ships trying to target each other through a haze of electronic deception. Johnson's systems couldn't fool the Council ships completely now that they were alert, but they still created enough confusion to give the human vessels an edge. 3 more Council ships fell to concentrated human fire. The last 2 tried to escape, accelerating away from the battle. 1 managed to jump to faster-than-light speed before it could be stopped. The other was caught by Miller's Avenger and destroyed. 1 enemy vessel has escaped, Miller reported to Admiral Wright. Estimate they will reach Council communication range in 6 hours. Wright's face was grim. Then we have 6 hours to prepare for what comes next. All ships return to Mars for immediate rearmament. The real war starts now. On the Council ship that escaped, the commander sent an urgent message to Council headquarters. The humans had not only rejected protectorate status, they had built warships and destroyed most of a Council fleet. The response came quickly. A full battle group would be dispatched. Immediately. The message included one more piece of information that sent a chill through every human who read the intercepted communication. The Council had decided that Earth was too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. The battle group was coming with planet-killer weapons. 5 years had passed since first contact with the Galactic Council. What had begun as a desperate fight for survival had become a full-scale war spanning multiple star systems. Humanity had shocked the Council with its rapid adaptation and expansion. Earth now had colonies on 12 planets across 8 star systems. The war that the Council had expected to end in weeks with Earth's submission had instead spread like wildfire. Meryl Samantha Wright stood on the bridge of her flagship, the EDF Freedom, looking out at the stars. At 47, her hair now had streaks of gray, and lines had formed around her eyes from years of difficult decisions. The Freedom was the largest ship humans had ever built, constructed in the shipyards of Mars and capable of destroying multiple Council vessels. Admiral, we've received the intelligence report from the Proxima Centauri system, said her executive officer, Commander Steve Harris. Council forces are gathering for what looks like a major offensive. Wright nodded. After the first battle, 5 years ago, the Council had sent their promised battle group with planet-killer weapons. But humanity had been ready. The human fleet had ambushed the Council ships using hit-and-run tactics. No Council vessel had reached Earth since then. The pattern had repeated across space as both sides adapted to the other's tactics. How many ships? Wright asked. At least 30, including 2 dreadnoughts, Harris replied. They seem to be protecting something important. Wright studied the star map showing Council and human positions. They're not moving toward any of our colonies. What are they guarding? The answer came from an unexpected source. A communication request arrived from a non-human, non-Council ship. Wright ordered it put through, and the image of an alien appeared. On screen, it had gray skin, large eyes, and spoke through a translation device. I am Ambassador Krell of the Navari, it said. We wish to speak with the humans who fight the Council. The Navari were a species that had been under Council protection for centuries. This was the first contact between them and humans. I am Admiral Wright of Earth, she replied. Why do you contact us now? Because the Council fears you, Krell answered. For the first time in 10,000 years, they face an enemy they cannot easily defeat. Many species under Council rule watch your resistance with hope. This was news to Wright. Humanity had been fighting alone, assuming every alien species was allied with the Council. Are you offering alliance? She asked cautiously. Yes, we have information about what the Council protects at Proxima Centauri. It is a superweapon designed to destroy your homeworld from a distance, bypassing your fleets. Wright's blood ran cold. Earth's defenses were strong, but they couldn't stop a weapon. They couldn't see coming. How soon will it be operational? 20 Earth days, Krell replied. But we can help you stop it. The Navari have ships with stealth technology superior to Council detection systems. We can transport your warriors behind enemy lines. Right. Didn't hesitate. Ambassador Eric Nelson will meet with you to arrange cooperation. In the meantime, I need to speak with my Special Forces commander. Major Lisa Cooper was summoned to the Freedom within hours. At 34, Cooper had become legendary among Earth forces for leading dangerous missions behind enemy lines. She was small in size but possessed incredible speed and tactical thinking. Her Special Forces teams had sabotaged Council bases across 3 star systems. You want us to destroy a superweapon protected by 30 Council ships? Cooper asked, after being briefed. I like a challenge, Admiral, but this seems impossible even for us. The Navari ships can get you past the Council fleet undetected, Wright explained. Once inside, your team will plant explosives at these key points. She showed Cooper the technical diagrams provided by the Navari. According to our new allies, the weapon has a critical weakness in its power core. Cooper studied the plans. We'll need our best people. And lots of explosives. You'll have everything you need, Wright promised. This mission must succeed, Major. Earth's survival depends on it. While Cooper prepared her team, Wright coordinated with the Navari. Ambassador Eric Nelson, a former diplomat who now specialized in interspecies relations, established protocols for the joint operation. The Navari provided detailed information about Council ship movements and communication codes. In return, humans shared their advances in weapons technology. They've been waiting for someone to challenge the Council for generations, Nelson reported to Wright. We aren't the first species to resist, but we're the first to fight back effectively. Why didn't they help those other species? Wright asked. Fear, Nelson answered simply. The Council destroyed the last civilization that seriously opposed them. The Navari weren't strong enough to fight alone. But now, with us taking the lead, they're willing to join. The joint operation began 5 days later. 3 Navari stealth ships carried Cooper's team of 20 human Special Forces soldiers toward the Proxima Centauri system. The Council fleet orbited a massive space station where the superweapon was under construction. Their stealth technology is amazing, Cooper said to her team as they approached undetected. Not even a ripple on Council scanners. The Navari ships docked with the station using stolen Council access codes. Cooper's team, wearing modified Council environment suits, moved through the station's corridors following Navari guidance. They reached the central power core without raising alarms. Plant the charges here, here, and here, Cooper ordered, pointing to the weak points identified in their briefing. We have 15 minutes before the next security sweep. The team worked quickly, placing powerful explosives designed by Dr. Davis specifically to damage Council technology. As they finished, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. "We've been detected," reported Sergeant Joe Wilson, checking his scanner. "Security forces converging from 3 directions." Cooper made a quick decision. Team Alpha with me to hold them off. Team Beta, complete the mission and get back to the ships. What followed was an intense firefight through the station's corridors. Council security forces outnumbered the humans, but Cooper's team had trained specifically for close-quarters combat. They used specialized weapons that could penetrate Council armor, moving from cover to cover with practiced precision. "Charges set," came the report from Team Beta. "Detonation in 3 minutes." "Fall back to the ships," Cooper ordered. The retreat was as difficult as expected. 2 human soldiers fell to Council weapons. Cooper herself was wounded in the arm by an energy blast but continued firing with her good hand. The survivors reached the Nevari ships just as the first explosions began deep in the station. "All teams aboard," Cooper reported as the Nevari ships detached from the doomed station. "We've lost Martinez and Chun." The Council fleet reacted to the explosions, ships turning toward the station as more detonations rippled through the structure. The superweapon's power core reached critical failure, creating a massive explosion that tore the station apart. Several nearby Council ships were caught in the blast. "Mission accomplished," Cooper said, watching through the view screen as the Nevari ship slipped away undetected. When news of the successful operation reached Earth, President Harrison addressed the combined Parliament of Earth. What had once been individual nations were now united in the war effort. "Today we have struck a critical blow against those who would destroy our homeworld," he announced. "And we no longer fight alone. The Nevari have joined our cause, the first of what we hope will be many allies." But the Council's response was swift and terrible. Unable to strike directly at Earth, they instead attacked the human colony on Proxima Centauri b. Council ships bombarded the settlement from orbit, killing over 20,000 civilians before the human fleet could respond. Admiral Wright received the news aboard the Freedom. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands clenched into fists. "They think this will make us surrender," she said to her officers. "They don't understand humans at all." The Earth Defense Council met in emergency session. "For the first time, Wright recommended a controversial step. We must deploy sunburst torpedoes against Council core worlds," she argued. "They must learn that attacking our civilians will result in attacks on theirs." President Harrison looked troubled. "We've avoided attacking civilian targets so far. This would be a major escalation." "They escalated first," Wright pointed out. "If we don't respond with equal force, they'll believe they can destroy our colonies one by one without consequences." The vote was close, but Wright's recommendation was approved. Within days, human stealth ships launched attacks on 3 Council worlds, using sunburst torpedoes to disable planetary shields before precision strikes on military targets. No civilian areas were directly targeted, but the message was clear. Humanity could reach the heart of Council territory. The war had entered a new phase. What had begun as a fight for survival had become a struggle that would reshape the galaxy. And as more species watched humans successfully resist Council rule, whispers of rebellion spread among the stars. 10 years had passed since the Galactic Council ships first appeared above Earth. What had begun as a struggle for survival had evolved into a conflict that had reshaped the power structure of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. 23 formerly subjugated species had joined the alliance against Council rule. The war had spread to hundreds of star systems as rebellion flared across the galaxy. General Jason Mitchell stood on the bridge of the assault carrier EDF Liberation as it orbited the frontier world of Caltra 4. At 38, Mitchell had risen through the ranks quickly due to his brilliant tactical mind and calm under pressure. His mission today would change the course of the war if successful. "All landing craft are ready, General," reported his second-in-command, Colonel Susan Reed. "The Nevari stealth field is holding. Council defenses show no sign of detecting our Presence? Mitchell nodded. Begin the operation. Keltra 4 looked like an unremarkable world, mostly covered in dense forests with scattered council settlements. But intelligence from the Moraki, another allied species, had revealed that beneath the largest settlement lay a council central database, one of only 5 in the galaxy. These databases contained the complete records of council operations, including their true history. Transport ships descended through the atmosphere, carrying 2,000 human and allied troops. The council garrison on Keltra 4 was small, just enough to protect what appeared to be a minor administrative center. They were unprepared for a major assault. Mitchell watched the tactical display as his forces surrounded the main council facility. Remember, we need the database intact, he reminded his commanders. Use stun weapons and EMP devices when possible. The battle was brief but intense. Council defenders fought desperately to protect the facility, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Human soldiers, led by veterans of a decade of war, breached the outer defenses within an hour. Allied Nevari and Moraki forces secured the perimeter, preventing any council ships from escaping to warn their superiors. Mitchell landed once the facility was secured. He walked through halls designed for aliens, past council soldiers now, held as prisoners. In the central chamber, Dr. Bradley West waited with a team of human and alien tech specialists. West had begun the war as a junior scientist working under Dr. Davis. Now he led the Scientific Intelligence Division, responsible for understanding and countering council technology. Did we get what we came for? Mitchell asked. West looked up from a console where he was working. His eyes were wide with excitement and shock. More than we ever imagined, General. The Council has been lying about everything, even to its own member species. Over the next several hours, West and his team extracted the true history of the Galactic Council from the database. What they discovered changed their understanding of the entire conflict. The Council isn't a democratic organization of species. West explained during the emergency briefing with Admiral Wright and President Harrison, transmitted via secure FTL communication. It's a carefully constructed facade. The 5 founding species have controlled everything from the beginning, using the protectorate system to prevent any other species from gaining real power. The database contained records going back 100,000 years. It showed how the founding species had systematically rigged the galactic political system. New species were always entered as protectorates, but the rules ensured they could never gain equal status. Resource-rich worlds were stripped under the guise of managed development. Species that showed too much independence were subtly sabotaged, or openly punished. They've been doing this for 100 millennia, West continued. Thousands of species have been kept as second-class members or servants. Some that resisted too strongly were driven to extinction. Admiral Wright, now with fully gray hair but eyes as sharp as ever, immediately saw the strategic opportunity. This information could shatter the Council's legitimacy. Even species that haven't joined our alliance would question their loyalty if they knew the truth. President Harrison agreed. Ambassador Nelson should begin a diplomatic offensive immediately. Contact every species in Council territory with this information. Mitchell secured the database and returned to Earth with the precious data. The information was carefully analyzed, verified, and then distributed throughout Council space using the communication techniques developed by Commander Johnson's Electronic Warfare Division. The message reached thousands of worlds simultaneously. Impossible for the Council to block, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Dozens of species that had been neutral in the conflict now openly rebelled against Council rule. Council military vessels found themselves facing mutinies as crew members from non-founding species turned against their commanders. The carefully maintained political system began to collapse. Supreme Council leader Thaxver, a member of the original founding species, sent an urgent message to all Council forces. This human deception must be countered immediately. All available ships are to converge on the human home system. We will end this rebellion by destroying its source. The Council gathered the largest fleet ever assembled, nearly 300 warships, including all remaining dreadnoughts. They prepared for a final assault on Earth, believing that destroying humanity would end the widening rebellion. Admiral Wright called together the commanders of the human and allied fleets. "The Council is making its final move," she told them. "They're committing everything to a direct assault on Earth. This is our opportunity to end the war in one decisive battle." The plan was daring. Instead of defending Earth directly, most of the human and allied fleet would hide in the shadow of Jupiter, using the massive planet to mask their energy signatures. A small force would engage the Council fleet initially, appearing to be the main Earth defense. When the Council committed fully to the attack, the hidden fleet would strike from behind and the sides. Captain Frank Miller, now a veteran commander with a body bearing the scars of many battles, led the decoy force. "Just like old times," he said to his crew as they prepared to face overwhelming odds. "Except this time, we're fighting for the freedom of the entire galaxy, not just Earth." The Council fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system in a massive formation designed to overwhelm any defense. They advanced confidently toward Earth, encountering Miller's smaller force in the orbit of Mars. "Enemy fleet is taking the bait," Miller reported as his ships engaged the front of the Council formation. "They believe we're the main defense." For 2 tense hours, Miller's force fought a fighting retreat, appearing to be gradually overwhelmed while drawing the Council fleet deeper into the trap. His ships took heavy damage and 3 were destroyed, but they maintained their discipline and the illusion. When the Council fleet reached the predetermined position, Admiral Wright gave the order from her flagship. "All ships, execute attack. Plan Omega." The hidden human and allied fleet emerged from behind Jupiter, accelerating rapidly toward the exposed flanks and rear of the Council formation. The Council commanders realized too late that they had been lured into a trap. Their neat formation broke apart as ships tried to reorient to face threats from multiple directions. The Battle of Sanctum Prime, as it would later be called, lasted 2 weeks as the Council fleet fought desperately to escape the encirclement. Human and allied ships pressed the attack relentlessly, using coordinated tactics developed over a decade of war. The sunburst torpedoes, now much more advanced than the original versions, disabled Council shields in expanding waves, allowing precision strikes on vital systems. By the end, 2/3 of the Council fleet had been destroyed. The remaining ships, including HFY's command vessel, surrendered. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Council had been decisively defeated. HFY was brought aboard the EDF Freedom to meet with Admiral Wright and representatives from the allied species. The Council leader seemed genuinely confused by his defeat. "How could primitives like you challenge the natural order of the galaxy?" he asked Wright. She looked at him with steady eyes. "Because there is no natural order. There are only those who choose freedom and those who choose control. We chose freedom, not just for ourselves, but for all." The peace negotiations lasted 3 months. Dr. Bradley West led humanity's delegation, working with representatives from all allied species. The terms were firm but not vengeful: the dissolution of the Council in favor of a new Galactic Congress, where all species would have equal representation. The founding species would retain their territories but lose their special status. Reparations would be paid to species that had been exploited. As the human ships returned to Earth, citizens gathered to welcome their defenders. The cost had been high, with millions of lives lost across dozens of worlds. But humanity had secured not just its own freedom, but had transformed the political structure of the galaxy. President Harrison addressed the first meeting of the new Galactic Congress, with representatives from over 500 species attending, either in person or via hologram. "We came to the stars hoping for friendship, but prepared for war. Today we put aside our weapons and extend our hands in true partnership. Not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as equals. This is the legacy of our struggle, a galaxy where politics may sometimes fail,